Alright, guys, welcome back to the podcast, back to Game and Compute. I hope this episode is gonna reach you guys well. Today I want to speak to some of the changes that I've been noticing, as well as some other podcasters have posted that they've noticed. So overall, I follow Henry G. If you search Henry G. Anchor Podcast, his YouTube channel generally comes up. Now, I came across this other guy whose name is Sales Pitch, and he has an episode. The title is from 2 months ago. The title is Anchor Spotify Just Screwed Every Podcaster with New Ad Policy Email. And apologies, I'm a little irritated today because I, was trying to get a little space and record. I went outside to record from inside my car, and the episode, when I went over to YouTube, because I was recording directly into the app, and I think I was on 5G, I wasn't on Wi-Fi anymore, the podcast doesn't really save the episodes if it gets cut off, and I know sometimes it depends, but I've noticed when I try to switch to a different app, like just to look, because I was looking for the name of that YouTube handle, Sales Pitch, because I've just come across him this morning, and so I was trying to search for his name, and then I found out that, the episode just got cut after like 20 something minutes, and then I can't upload it. Basically, it's lost. It's lost in the abyss. Another episode lost in the abyss. And so right now I'm trying to recreate what I said for the last 20 minutes. So maybe you guys are gonna get lucky and we'll get to weed out some of the stuff that wasn't as on point, but I feel like all of it was. But I'm gonna speak to some of the changes we've been seeing. I don't really have solutions. I can only speak to the solutions that others have mentioned, because I haven't tested out any, options yet. So I think I've spoken on this a little bit before, but sometime in March, I noticed, when I was going onto the Anchor app, it basically it redirected me to Spotify for podcasters. I had to download that app, and then I guess it was from that app that asked me, which platform was I coming from, and I clicked Anchor.fm, and I was doing this all on my phone, and I clicked on there, and then basically my login and password, all my sign-in info stayed the same. And so I started just podcasting like usual. Now, on this podcast, Game and Compute, I don't post on here every single day. There are points when I do post, when I have things to say, and probably since about a little before December or so, I hadn't really been posting every day. In December of 2022 on here. But there is a podcast that I started around the same time as this one. I have 4 podcasts total. One podcast I've been posting since 2020 almost every day. And so I use that one kind of as a guide to see kind of what's different. But I feel like this podcast at Game and Compute, and a different podcast that I have called Theory and Theology, these two podcasts have more niche topics that people are kind of more interested in gravitating towards. I have this other LGBT podcast and another one that's kind of like 420 related. Um, and so, I've noticed, the 421 is like, it's kind of like a little bit of like self-help, psychological stuff. The other one is more like niche, like cultural topics, gender-related stuff. Um, Game and compute, we don't talk about those topics too much. And then theory and theology, I'm talking more about kind of all kinds of like belief systems, cults, just like lifestyles, cultures, different things along those lines. Even ancient cultures, like I've talked a lot about like ancient Egypt, um, and different things like that. And so those other ones, as well as this one, I usually don't have much to say every single day. Um, but the one that I record on the most is the LGBT one because I usually post kind of a lifestyle, a daily kind of update, and I feel like I might start posting that daily update about just kind of my routine of whatever happened the day before, and then up to the point of when I'm podcasting. I think I'm gonna record that for every day and just post it on every podcast. And the reason why I say that is because usually consistency is going to be what is going to help the most. The algorithm supports consistency. It's like that with YouTube. It's like that with podcasting. It's like that with blogging. Usually that's how the algorithm supports, to drive organic traffic is if they see you're posting daily and for a certain amount of time. Now, what that time frame is, I don't know. But I use okay. So I use guidelines. I use as a guide kind of what it is that different platforms expect. And I assume that there's an algorithm type of reward, if that's what you want to call it. The algorithm rewards you for following that. So say for example, I'm going to talk about this more, but originally on Anchor, you would make money by a CPM, so however many thousands of people listen to your podcast, you get a certain amount of cents, like a certain amount of cents or dollars. I believe I started at like 10 cents or something along those lines. And then it started going up into the dollar ranges. It depended which podcast, because mind you, I'm tracking like 4 different things, 4 different ones. But it went up to, I don't know, let's say it was like $1 something or whatever. Cost per milli or whatever it's called. I don't know, it's called like CPM. So basically, or RPM, like I don't know if it's CPM, RPM. But basically that was how you got paid, right? Like I had an Anchor ad that was in the episode. I usually would post the ad towards the end of the episode, so it's not like screwing up. Like it was the same ad every time. So because I only had the option to use that ad specifically through Anchor. So I used that ad and I posted, and by using that ad and posting, that's how it would monetize each episode. So if I had posted 20 episodes and didn't post any ad in there would not be any monetization for that episode. But say if it was like my best episode, and for some reason for like all of 2020 and all of 2021 and all of 2022, I'm just giving an example, for those whole years, say that it was, generating a lot of traffic, but I'm not getting money for it because I never put an ad in there, right? I mean, there's other ways, affiliate links, there's other things you can do that kind of like, people can see, people can opt in to something. But I think the easiest thing is, the ads, because all that happens with the ads is they're placed in the episode, and then people listen to your episode, and they don't really have to buy anything, they don't have to do anything, they just listen. It's just whatever traffic is listening to your episode, you get money for that, if you put the ad in there as the monetization. And that's all that I was really offered through Anchor.fm. I was never offered any other thing. Now, I did see other people getting offered different types of ads that would maybe be temporary, and you would make maybe more money through those types of ads. But again, it was all through Anchor. Like, I wasn't going outside for different ads from different companies. I never searched for that. Like, other than affiliate links, I never really pushed anything towards anybody. I was just kind of like record, post. Maybe I would at most go back and edit the show notes and put in, more information or a couple links or something, if that. And usually I was recording like while driving to or from San Diego, or just daily, like getting out of the house and getting some sunlight and fresh air, and I'd just be like in a different environment recording just for like to unwind my day or something, and or just like as a project. I would have like certain topics I'd be studying, and so I would record about that. And so, the way that I try to look at the guidelines, or how to make money, if I'm not 100% sure of like a rhythm of what to do, like I don't have like a cadence, I don't have like a real, like, if I do this, I'll make $5. If I do this, I'll make $20 by this date or by that date. Like, if I don't have anything like that I know specifically, what I do is I follow what they mention. And so, Anchor.fm went from what I said, like with the ads, where you could just choose to put up an ad and it would be the same ad every day pretty much, until they offered something else. But you could just go through their ads and just throw them in your episodes, and that's all you really had to do. The more traffic that was, gravitating towards those episodes with the ads, the more money you would get. And that's all it really was for me at that time. Now we have that, Anchor.fm is now, under Spotify for podcasters. So now I don't go into the Anchor.fm app. I go in through the Spotify for Podcasters app. It looks almost like the Spotify app is just purple instead of green. And so I go in there when I log in, and I basically start to post. Like, I go in there after I log in and I start to post, the episode. But now I don't have an ad, right? There's no ad yet, because it says over a period of 60 days, I have to have at least 100 listens. So if I don't hit 100 listens, I'm not going to be offered that campaign for this ambassador ad, meaning I can't monetize any episode in the way I was doing it before. And so that is an issue. But the way that I would say that the algorithm would push your stuff is, the daily uploads. I'm still not certain about the daily uploads as far as uploading more than one a day. The reason why I say I'm not sure about that is because, at least with Anchor, when it wasn't what it is exactly now, like before this change, I noticed that when I would post 1 or 2 episodes, and Henry G talked about this too, when I would post 1 or 2 episodes, it would put them up, but as far as like gathering data about traffic, it would say how many listeners, how many new listeners or individual listeners I had that day. So if I had 2 listeners on one episode, episode 1 of that day, and 4 listeners on episode 2 of that day, but let's say that the first 2 listeners listened also to the second episode, so that would technically be 6 listens on that episode, but not 6 new listeners. It would be maybe 4 new listeners on that second episode, but 2 of them were from earlier that day. And so it was previously tracking that weird. Like it would say like the new listeners, it would only count the new listeners. So if I had like 2 episodes that I would post, or 3 episodes I would post, and say 10 people listened, and it would be 10 people on the first episode, and 10 people on the second episode, and 10 people on the third episode, but it was 3 episodes, they wouldn't count it as 30 people listening. They would count it as 10 people listening because there's only 10 original people. Now, if any of those episodes had listeners that were not from the original 10 people from that day, if they were different people, they would count the individual different people. So I don't know what's up with that now. I don't even know what was up with that then, in all honesty. Like, it was weird, but that was one piece of guidance that I got from listening to Henry G's episodes, was that he did mention, how they count the amount of people as far as the analytical data. Another thing I notice is, there seems to be some kind of discrepancies. I can't tell if it's accurately reporting how many people listen, because to me the numbers don't make sense. They don't really add up. Like, it doesn't make any specific sense to me why on certain days I'm getting spikes, but then when I go into the actual analytics and I look at the graph and I see each episode that's listened to, and I start counting the amount of people, like say if it says I got 20 listens today, but then it shows 1 listen for this episode, and then it maybe shows 1 listen for the previous episode, and then maybe my very first episode that I posted, maybe I got 2 listeners on that one. I'm like, how does that add up to 20? Because it's showing me which episodes got listened to today, this new one, the last one, and then the very first episode. Like, say if that's the example, it's like, if it doesn't add up to 20 on there, how is it saying that I got 20? And so I'm like, how does this even report? So the recent spikes I've noticed, I've had a couple spikes on different podcasts at different times. One of the spikes I noticed was when I first switched to using this different app. I think that was around March 16th or something like that. I could be wrong on the date, but I think it was like March 16th, I think. And it's not too clear what's going on with that. It's never been too clear with the analytics graph, but even when I look on my laptop, I'm like, what I feel like the numbers are like weird. But when I go in, I see these different numbers, and I'm like, is this right? Like, is this the right number? And that's what I'm having a hard time deciphering, is, are the numbers right? Because if I'm supposed to be getting 100 listens in 60 days, but the numbers aren't right, or it's not counting per episode, if it's only counting per episode unique listeners and not say the same set of people, So I could post, like, say if I posted like 20 episodes a day, right? I mean, I'm not going to do that, but say if I decided to do that to see if I would get more listeners, because then all the listeners would listen. Say if it was only one person per day listening to each 20 episodes, they wouldn't count that as 20. It would still count as one. And so I'm just like, what the heck? Like, I just don't get it. Like, it's just not very clear to me where these numbers are coming from, or like what is going on, why they change. Like, why was there more traffic on certain days versus others? And I'm trying to like see, like, okay, which episodes are capturing more traffic so that I can, gravitate towards those topics. But I just don't know. Like, I'm like, it's all over the place. Like, there's one bar graph that does show the most popular episodes. I know the Biaheza one on this channel is the most popular episode, is when I talked about Biaheza's methods, and about his course. And but yeah, I don't know if there's a way to click on it and see which days people were listening to that. Like, it's just really confusing right now, you guys. Like, I don't really understand fully, like, what it is that's actually happening. And did I mention, I can't remember, because I just recorded information that got deleted, so I can't remember if I just said this or not, but sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I did have some money in the Anchor app that never got transferred into my Stripe account, and now that money, when I go to the money tab, it's not there. It only has the option for these ambassador campaigns. So right now I'm trying to figure out basically this, the analytics, if it's accurate. I don't know how I can even tell if it's accurate or not, but I feel like it's not accurate. I'm a little skeptical, because I don't know why I'd be getting random spikes. That spike in March kind of made sense because I changed to a different app. So that kind of makes sense, because now there might be exposure from other places. But I mean, I didn't drive traffic to them, so I don't really know how they got here. Like, I'm just like, and then they kind of like fell off too. And I can't tell who's new, who's not. Like, I can't tell which individual person's listening to what. Like, I don't really know. So it's just really confusing to try to figure out what is going on. And I'm not the only one who's having this issue. This is the first time, or maybe second time, that I've tried to like put an explanation to it. But I'm just recording as I go about what I noticed, and I just don't really understand, though. I don't understand it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get my money. I know on Henry G's comments, I scrolled through his most recent video where he was saying that he's moving to a different platform, and that platform he's gonna pay like over $200 a month to use that platform. I think it's called Megaphone, and I think to get downloads, you also pay. And he estimated, and I think you have to have, I don't know if he said 16,000 or 60,000 listeners on average per day. I don't know if it's on average or you have to have that amount per day to be able to even, be on there. And so podcasting is getting, they're kind of more tightly, cracking down on who can make money and how. I'm seeing that podcasting is shifting from this, just like we saw with YouTube, right? Like initially, I don't know, I don't know who was around when, but when I first started going on YouTube, I would watch videos. I don't think there was an option for monetization through YouTube. I don't think Google had bought it at that point. I used to just go on there and watch music videos. Like it wasn't so obvious, like I basically would watch music videos on Yahoo Music or whatever it was, and my friends were like, why do you use Yahoo for music videos? Like, why don't you just go to YouTube? And I was like, oh, like they have more stuff. And this was back when it was like 240p, 360p or whatever, and I had to like wait for it to load. Like it was like that long ago. Like before 1080p was even like a thing. Like it was so long ago. And I would post on there, people would post on there, but it was more like home video style. There weren't really like channels where people were monetizing. It was more like I don't know, like there wasn't anything really like it, but it was more like posting home videos or posting, I don't think people at that time had like a monetized niche that they were posting like tutorials or vlogging or whatever. Like I don't think it was like that at the beginning, and it slowly formed into that. And I remember with YouTube, I was initially monetized, and then they got to a point where they're like, well, now you have to have 1,000 subscribers to be monetized. And it's like everyone who was under that, you can no longer make money. And now I'm seeing that with Anchor and with Spotify and with all the other podcasts. Now it's gravitating more towards, well, you can't just make money now. You can't just start making money. You have to have like a certain limit that you pass to be able to start making money. And this other guy, this sales pitch guy, he makes a very good argument that, people aren't going to want to pay subscriptions. When you're already paying for Spotify, like $9.99 a month or $7.99 or whatever the heck it is, you're already paying for Spotify to use Spotify. Why would you pay more money to have to listen to a podcast that you can already listen to for free? Like nobody's going to subscribe to that. So I don't know if people are going to start moving on to Patreon, or if people are going to start trying to get more creative. I don't know how people can drive more traffic other than paid traffic. Like that's usually been my source of traffic, has been paid traffic. Especially because I'm not posting consistently, and because it's hard to really figure out the analytics of like what is doing well. It's really hard to guide like, okay, like these are doing the best. Like the way the analytics are written out, it's like it's going to be really hard to just post that every day. So like I'm not going to post about Biaheza every day. And even he's mixed up his monetary, what do you call it, his avenues of where he's getting his money. He's mixed it up a little bit too. He switched it up a little bit too. And so with the economy changing, everything's kind of like shifting and moving and shaking, and you're just kind of like, I don't know what's going where. And to try to figure out the information surrounding the data, if you can't figure out the data information, it's going to be really hard to kind of make a strategic plan about how to really strategize to actually get to where you're trying to go. Like usually, like I mentioned, like when I do side hustles and that kind of stuff, usually what I do is I figure out how to make the money first. Like what did I do that made the money? Then I try to narrow it down and figure out how much money am I making a day. Am I making $1 a day? Am I making $10 a day? Am I making $100 a week? And then how many days am I going to do this, and how many hours or how much time do I need to spend to get to that amount of money? Usually I can get to that point. And so in the past, I've gotten to that point with podcasting, with eBay sales, with Craigslist sales, with like iPhone sales, with OfferUp sales, with all these different kind of things. I've been able to kind of figure out, okay, what did I do to get up my first buck? Is it going to be easy to get to $5? Is it going to be easy to get to $10? Then to get to $100, and like, you know, just build it up from there. And then usually once something shifts, I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this. You know, like once all the iPhone stuff started shifting with the iPhone 6 becoming more and more obsolete, and then everybody's scamming, and then places not taking iPhones anymore. Because usually what I did is when I couldn't resell the iPhones, I would just take them and just sell them at a pawn shop. And then at a certain point, pawn shops stopped taking them because they're like, well, people scam and they, you know, report it as stolen or something. And then, so after they've sold it, they get the money from the pawn shop. They report it as stolen. They go get a new phone, and then the old phone is shut down. So then when the pawn shop goes to resell that phone, they can't sell it because Apple has locked them out. And the account is now locked, and you can no longer use that phone because it's reported as stolen. And all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, there were all kinds of like weird scammy stuff that people were doing with iPhones. But it got to a point where it's like, well, they're hard to sell now. And then they got these newer ones, and then everything got like better and flashier and more expensive, to the point where it was like, okay, now it's too much money to just get a phone and risk not being able to sell it, you know, because it wasn't such a big profit margin. Like with the iPhone 6, at a certain point, the profit margin was pretty great because you could buy them super cheap because people were getting new phones all the time. You could buy them super cheap, and then you could resell them for a pretty high profit. Like I was making about 100 or so profit per phone. And so it didn't really take that much to reach my weekly goals. I was just like, well, I just want to make this much money, so I need to get this many phones and then resell this many by the end of the week. That was easy to maintain. But then it's like, well, when you can't resell them, when you don't have anybody to sell them to, or when you can't like properly buy them because they're scamming on the side of buying them, or people are trying to scam you, and they're not honestly giving you a phone that you can check. Like I could check it at that time, but then I don't know if they're going to go and report it as stolen once they leave, once I give them the cash for the phone, you know. So it was this whole thing. And so that kind of killed what I was doing on that end. And now I feel like Anchor or whatever, Spotify, is kind of killing it with this. Not killing it in a good way either. Like it's just kind of killing people's monetization options, just like all these other major platforms have done to creators. You know, they take the platforms and they change it and they screw it up for people, and nobody's able to make it work anymore. And you know, that's really hard to see. It's really not ideal, and I hate it. You know, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like it. But because I like to try to explain to people how to actually do stuff, and if you can't explain a step by step, like I feel like I never fully figured out Anchor. And so now that I'm on, you know, this, I guess Spotify always owned Anchor, but now Spotify's taking like a bigger presence, and I don't know what they're doing that's different than what was happening before. And it's just becoming tiring, because it's like, it's one thing to even make a couple bucks here and there. It's like, whatever, like even if it's a couple bucks, it's a couple bucks. Like to me, if I'm not spending like hours and hours to make $2, you know, if it's like just consistency of something that I love doing is you know, adding up to more. You know, if it's just a consistency thing and it's paying out, like to me it's like, well, I'm gonna podcast anyways. Like even if I'm not getting paid, I would still post stuff, you know, unless it really started getting in the way of, you know, earning potentials in other ways. But I just love doing it anyways. I love sharing information. I love sharing, you know, ideas. I love putting together projects, especially when there's potential to make money from it. I'm like, oh, this was cool. And to me, it's like, okay, maybe I could take it or leave it if I'm making $1 or $2. But for somebody else, it's like they can take that and build it up, especially if there's a strategy that someone can explain. And right now, the issue that I'm having is how to figure out the strategy of, what is the algorithm looking for, you know, how do you build traffic, how do you build an audience, and they're kind of taking this weird stance that they seem to want people to have subscriptions when this isn't OnlyFans, this isn't Patreon, this isn't a platform where you can go and just be like, somebody subscribing. I feel like what difference would it make? What more is a subscriber gonna get out of this podcast than if I was posting it for free? Like, I value free information. I think information and education should be free. I don't think people should have to pay for it. But at the same time, it's like, they're taking a platform that people had monetized accounts on, and they were monetizing episodes, and now they can't monetize that the same way. And I really don't think the data being shared is accurate. I don't know how to confront that. And I know on Henry G's episode he did mention, contacting Anchor through Twitter, to see if you have questions. Maybe they can resolve some of, offer some kind of guidance or solutions or help in some way. But I feel like it's just, I'm annoyed by it. I don't like people messing with my money, even if it's like $1 or $2. I don't care how much it is. It's like, I don't like people messing with it. And I did have money in my Anchor account that never got cashed out, and now I'm like, I don't know how to get my money out of there. It wasn't a lot of money, but it probably added up total to like probably $100, I want to say. Maybe $100 to $150, because I didn't really check it after a certain point. So it wasn't like a whole lot of money, but it was like probably $150. And I'm like, maybe 100. Let's say minimum. Let's say if I put it on the low end, maybe it was like $100. Which that's a significant amount in my opinion. But I don't know. I'm trying to find more information, but this is what I'm noticing. There's a lot of changes. So I'm going to be posting my daily updates to the end of every episode on here. Or if I don't post an episode, I'm going to try and just post my daily. I'm just going to try and post daily. I don't know if I'm really going to be able to do it, but let me see if I can try to do it. I'll try it this week. Let's see what happens. I'll either tag it onto the end of an episode or just post it individually if I don't have like a brand new episode. It'll just be an update of my schedule for the day. And yeah. So please bear with me. There's going to be a lot of changes going on. I don't know what those are going to look like. I'll try and communicate that once I know, if I can figure it out. I'm still trying to provide value on here. If there are people who want to reach out and have something you want to say, you can get in touch with me at gamingcompute@gmail.com. You can, I don't know, like I've got a website up, but I've changed it so much that I don't contact me through there. Just email would be the easiest if you have something that you have a question about, if I could try to figure it out, or if you have any updates that you'd like me to post about if you don't post. But if you have some kind of information that could be of help to the community, that would be very useful, because there's a lot of people right now looking for information. Even trying to find information about how podcasting algorithms work and everything. There's a lot of generic stuff, But when it comes to Anchor, when it comes to Megaphone, like some of these platforms, you just really can't find a lot of information on it. And I don't know why. Maybe YouTube is silencing it because it is maybe a bit of a competition because people do post on YouTube. And that would be another option I'm thinking is, if people can drive traffic from YouTube, that's probably what I'm going to have to do is take every episode I've posted on here and post it on freaking YouTube. And I hate YouTube with posting. I mean, I watch it like a fiend. Like, I love content on there, but I hate posting on there just because it takes that extra long amount of time to upload. Because I like doing everything from my cell phone. And so just trying to do something audio only, it's a little bit of a pain, in all honesty. I don't like it. So, I don't know, guys. Those are just my consciousness streams for this. Alright, guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is going to be my first attempt for this week of posts. Trying to post my daily update information on all 4 of my podcasts. So some podcasts, this will be maybe the only information for the day that I'm going to post, depending on the day. And then other podcasts, I'll just tag this portion on to the end of an episode if somebody wants, if people are interested and want to hear kind of what I'm doing for the last near 24-hour period. I'm going to see how this goes and try to post this every day this week. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. It's just something I'm flying by the seat of my pants and decided let me try it out because I post it on one of my 4 podcasts pretty much every day anyways, so I just figured let me just branch it out to the other podcasts as well. So I usually put up a little schedule of what I've been doing. I take notes of my schedule every day, usually just the health related stuff. So people who follow routinely about what I do, since the weekend, I think it was on about 420, I posted on Thursday on one of the pods about, 420 and that kind of thing. And then, Friday I didn't really get up to too much, but I think it was Thursday I started doing gigs, what do you call them? Like secret shopper type gigs, or scheduling to do it and scheduling for different, like, signing up for different programs. It was somewhere around those days. I can't remember what day, honestly, if it was Wednesday or Thursday or something. But I've really been looking into gig apps and the non-scammy type of stuff, right? Because we all know people post online and they'll be like, make $1,500 in an hour or something, and you're just like, that's not gonna happen, or you'll go down this like clickbait rabbit hole where you can spend 2 or 3 hours watching all these videos and signing up for stuff that just doesn't work. So I'm reviewing some different types of apps, and as I use them, I'm gonna try to post about how much money realistically it seems like a person can make on a realistic, if you weren't doing this as a 40-hour-a-week thing, because if you wanted to spend 40 hours a week or even longer, I'm pretty sure you could figure out how to make a whole lot more money on those apps. But it's like, I feel like most people realistically would rather spend that time working in an hourly paid job, just because you're not, at the whim of people not, just not knowing how much money you make. Like, I feel like it's not a good budgeting strategy to not know how much money you're gonna make every day. It's not a good financial strategy, but also, if you can do that and make any amount of money, I think for some people, depending on what you're going through, For some people, they'd rather work, you know, while they're applying for jobs or whatever, and work a 40-hour week to make, I don't know, like $3 a day or $8 a day or whatever. Like, it does add up, even though, yes, it's ridiculous, you know, to think about, oh, I made $8 today, but it was only $1 per hour for 8 hours or whatever, you know. Um, I think people can kind of figure that out, though, of like what they want to do. It's up to the individual with those choices, but you know, I started trying to post about that kind of information to give a more adequate view. So on my Game and Compute podcast, that's where I post about side hustles and things like that, and I try to, you know, share that information with people who might want it or need it. Because for some people, I do know that, you know, I've been in a position before, way back, where I was on Amazon Turk. I think that's what it was called, MTurk or Amazon MTurk or something like that. And I was filling out surveys and doing like some weird, like, I don't know if I was doing like transcriptions of like audio recordings or something, and they would pay you a little bit, but I knew I was studying for the GRE or something, and you know, I was home a lot, and I was like, what difference does it make if I make like, you know, $5 a day for overworking? You know, I'd rather make the $5 a day than none. You know, like sometimes it's like just because it adds up, you know, you can still get your needs met. Um, but it is, you know, I couldn't say that I've found too many things lately. I found one that I think might, depending on how the schedule looks and depending on how many opportunities they allow you to get and have and do per day, depending on how that looks, I think it would pay out pretty well. But I'm waiting for the new month to see how many gig opportunities they offer. Because the way I'm looking at it is because I came into that specific app later in the month. I'm not sure what it looks like at the beginning of the month, because I'm not sure if, okay, like all these options are exhausted now, or what is it, you know. I can't really tell what it is. And so I don't really want to report on it and then have to go back and be like, oh, I was wrong, because that's just going to take more energy and more effort to try to remember what I was doing, and I know I'm not going to do it anyways. I'll just probably, unfortunately, leave people hanging, and so I don't want to do that. I'd rather just wait and see if I can find out, you know, what the options look like, because it seems like it pays out well, but if you don't have, you know, enough options, you can't really work an 8-hour shift, because the way I see it is like you would exhaust your options within like 2 or 3 days in most cities, and then you wouldn't be able to work the rest of the month. But still, like, so I don't really want to say like, oh yeah, you could make a 40-hour work week and make $40 an hour, when it's like, okay, you can do that, but only for 3 days out of the month, and then you're not going to be able to do it. And so, yeah, I don't want to say that if that's not true, but that's what it looks like. But I'll report on it in more specifics on the Game and Compute podcast once I know. Um, because I don't know. Um, yeah, Friday I did a lot of brainstorming about what I was going to study on Saturday. I do a lot of studying on the weekends. Not studying for classes, but studying for fun, for just what, you know, for potential topics to record in different niches. So on my Theory and Theology podcast, I usually talk a lot about, you know, religion, or about different cultures, different religions, different cultures, different traditions of different types of people around the world, indigenous people, you know, modern living people, people who speak English, people who don't speak English, people who are different races and different ethnicities, and different sorts of beliefs. Lately I've been studying about strict religions, about cults, and about kind of different places, different people who have talked about their stories about leaving certain religious environments. And so that's kind of what I decided on, I think sometime around Friday. And then Saturday I did a lot of, reviewing of videos and things. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to for the last couple days. As far as last night, I went to bed probably late, around like 1:30. But I started dozing around, I don't know, let's call it 11:30 p.m. Like, I was getting tired pretty early, and I just was kind of like not really ready to fall right to sleep. So I kind of stayed up a little longer. And I was relaxing though, and I woke up this morning a little later. I don't know what time it was. Probably like just before 7 a.m. I woke up around 6:50 something maybe. Then around 7:30 decided, let me grab some coffee and start my day. The coffee wasn't really strong enough, and I did have a headache last night. Suddenly, sometime around like 9 p.m. I did kind of start having a headache, and then I don't know if I still have a headache. Well, I do actually still have a headache. I don't know why though. I don't know if it's because I've been eating way less carbs, or if it's because I was sitting out in my hot car talking on the phone to my friend for over 2 hours. Maybe it was a dehydration thing. Maybe it's something else kind of thing. I've been eating a lot more fruits and vegetables and fiber and stuff. And so maybe it's just because I've been eating a little bit differently. I really don't know. It could be anything. But, I have noticed lately getting headaches since about February sometime. I started getting, kind of mild headaches. But on occasion they do go from one night and then still last into the next morning. And this isn't, it's not that I never had headaches before. I remember getting headaches way back, but I'm not sure why they started returning all of a sudden. A lot of times people say, oh, stress or maybe lack of sleep. That could be it, because I haven't been sleeping like really good lately, but it's because I've been kind of decreasing the amount of melatonin I've been having, because I've been groggy in the morning with melatonin in my system, and then been having to drink coffee, and then getting some pretty high anxiety. And so I've been trying to kind of decrease a lot of stuff this last week, like maybe the second half of last week and on. I don't know, guys, like sometimes it's a little bit confusing for me. I don't talk about this too openly all the time, and I'm not one to push religion and stuff, even though I'm very open to discussions surrounding belief systems and different cultures, which I love. But I'm just going to throw it out there because it is part of my weekly routine. From Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, I'm usually immersed in some form of study that has some kind of involvement around like improving relationships. So whether that's studying some kind of culture to kind of gather some kind of information about how they interact with, parent-child relationships, or how they do, some kind of community kind of gathering, or something that has to do with like community and socializing and things like that. Because it's so important to me, I kind of do gravitate towards studying all kinds of cultures and traditions, even from ones that I'm a part of or ones that I'm not a part of. But I do tend to spend that time period kind of, reflecting on like different social interactions and maybe things that might be maybe socially a little difficult or not going so well, or if I notice like trends of like maybe how I'm treating someone or like patterns of how, I'm reacting to how someone's treating me, or if I notice different types of, things that could maybe improve in my own personal relationships, or just gathering information about how communities in general can like be good with each other, because I do find that to be one of the most important things that I value. Like I was raised around like a tradition of keeping, the Jewish Sabbath, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, but I don't really traditionally keep it. You know, I'm not Jewish, I never was, but I was raised in a Christian denomination that kept the Jewish Sabbath, and I do still kind of hold space for that time period to kind of do something that I find valuable. I mean, that's not the only thing I do, but I do try to use that time period for like what I mentioned about like cultural learning and stuff like that. Just for my own understanding of like different types of people, especially because I'm not working in the psych field anymore, and I'm not just regularly talking to people on a daily basis in therapy, and like, I'm not like actively using my mind all the time anymore to like delve into people's lives and their patterns and, what's going on with their goals and like their distress levels of different things, and what, where are they stuck and all this kind of stuff. I'm not really like in my analytical part of my mind about those things like multiple hours a day anymore, but I do still value, a lot of what I was learning and a lot of what I was doing, and what I took from it is, that I really value sorry, I'm blanking. I really value learning, about different types of people, their needs, their struggles, their, what they are doing that works for them that maybe I don't know about, or that the people I'm surrounded with don't do. And kind of when I can formulate ideas, about those things, then I'll kind of record about it a little bit sometimes. Because I think that's one of the more important things is, socially how people interact, and, it can be healing and it can be harmful. Like, so I do think it's valuable to often, see how society is kind of, changing around us all, and, trying to, for myself, trying to figure out what to do with all the changes. Just so that, people in communities, can have something more, you know, like kind of like something to, think on to kind of benefit their own lives potentially. Like I might not be doing like some strict religious tradition, but I'm still taking a certain time period and trying to do something productive that I value. And yeah, so there's that. And yeah, it's about lunchtime. It's a little after 1 right now, so I'm gonna heat up some food to eat, get some lunch in me, take a little break, and then yeah, I hope you guys are gonna like these updates. Usually I'm more detailed with what I'm doing because I usually have a play-by-play of what I'm doing hourly. But that's kind of all I've done today. You know, I woke up, had some coffee, had a little breakfast. I had egg bites and fruit for breakfast and water. And then, yeah, it's pretty much, and I had the coffee before breakfast. But yeah, it's pretty much all. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna grab some lunch. I'm gonna be working on podcasting most of today, and I don't really know. I got a lot I'm trying to figure out, but I don't think I can figure it all out today. And then, like, I'm basically studying analytics today, and then I've got to get back into some of my, exam studies. I need to schedule. I still haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna schedule today what I'm gonna do for, as far as like gigs for the week, what I'm gonna get into, and as far as gigs or as far as studying schedules, what I'm gonna do as far as when I'm gonna study, how long, what I'm gonna study, and like I'm not really doing job applications anymore. I did end up landing a job, and then I realized I was like, I don't really want to do it because they were gonna make me work Saturdays, and I don't really want to. I told them I could, and then I kind of was like, well, I can't do it every week, and then I was like, yeah, it's kind of against my routine. I really don't want to throw my routine off of what I do on Saturdays, because it's important for me to not do that. So I'm choosing my routine over work right now, and it wouldn't have been a very good job either. It's like not even half of the pay. It's like probably about half of the pay that I would want to be getting, and it's part-time. So, it was at the very least a bit of a confidence booster, because I haven't really applied for jobs up until more recently when I was looking for something temp. And then I was like, that's going to take away from, all these other craft type of things I've been doing, and I'm not really passionate about it, and the money's not worth it for me. Especially because it would be a 20-hour week. I think I would make more just buckling down and doing what I need to do online, instead of driving all over town, and I don't think it would be a good fit. Even though at the time when I was applying, I was like, I'll take anything, and then I was kind of like, but this just doesn't suit me. It has nothing to do with my goals. So I'm not gonna accept it. I declined it on Friday. It just seems like it would be a distraction, and it would take me longer to do what I need with my exams and everything, and for applying for the jobs I actually want. I feel like if I took that job, I would work at it and be a little worn down, and then have less time for podcasting and less time for my websites and other stuff. So I really don't know. I'm fine with it. But I just don't know what else I would potentially try and do. So I think I'm making the best decision for my own self and for what I've built so far. So I'm okay with the decision. Like, I'm not like broke or desperate, which is fine. But alright, guys, I'm gonna get off here and go eat lunch, and thanks for listening.